A man stands in the hospital corridor, holding his newborn son for the first time. His wife smiles through exhaustion. His mother cries tears of joy. His friends flood his phone with congratulations. Everyone around him celebrates this moment as the pinnacle of masculine achievement, the ultimate fulfillment of a man's purpose. Friedrich Nietzsche, the philosopher who tore apart every comfortable illusion humanity ever created, would look at this scene and say something that would shatter this man completely. He would say this father just signed away his freedom, traded his potential for a socially approved prison, and convinced himself it was a choice when really it was surrender. Why? Because Nietzsche understood what modern society desperately hides. That fatherhood as we practice it today isn't about creating strong men or raising powerful children. It's about domesticating the wild, castrating ambition, and transforming lions into sheep. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. But what happens when that why is a lie you were sold? What happens when fatherhood isn't the liberation you imagined, but the cage you built for yourself? If you believe fatherhood is the ultimate test of manhood, Nietzsche has 7 brutal truths that will destroy everything you thought you knew. Walk into any suburban neighborhood on a Saturday morning, and you'll see them everywhere. Fathers pushing strollers with dead eyes, men at playgrounds scrolling through their phones while their children play, guys at birthday parties wearing forced smiles, making small talk with other fathers who are just as hollowed out. They tell themselves this is what men do. This is responsibility. This is maturity. This is love. But Nietzsche saw through this performance. He saw that what modern society calls fatherhood is actually the systematic destruction of everything that makes a man dangerous, creative, and alive. The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. These fathers aren't choosing this life. They're victims of the most successful propaganda campaign in human history. The lie that tells men their value comes from self-sacrifice, that their purpose is to serve, that their legacy is measured by how much of themselves they give away. Here's what nobody admits. They didn't become fathers because of some deep calling. They became fathers because every force in society pointed them toward it, because their girlfriend wanted it, because their parents expected it, because their friends were doing it, because they were terrified of being alone, because they thought it would fix their relationship, because they needed something to give their life purpose since they never developed one themselves. And now they're trapped. The man who doesn't fit the norm is called weak by those who fear his strength. But these modern fathers mistake their weakness for virtue. They call their surrender wisdom. They call their domestication maturity. They've forgotten what they sacrificed. They've suppressed who they could have become. They've traded their potential for the comfort of conformity. Because society doesn't want men who are wild, unpredictable, and free. Society wants men who are controllable, predictable, and useful. And fatherhood, as currently constructed, is the most effective tool society has ever created to transform dangerous men into harmless servants. Every Sunday dinner tells the same story. Dad sits there making polite conversation about his daughter's soccer game, while inside he's screaming. He's thinking about the business he never started, the trip he never took, the version of himself he abandoned the moment he chose safety over potential. But he smiles. He asks about homework, and he tells himself this is enough. Nietzsche would call this man exactly what he is, a slave who learned to love his chains, because real fatherhood, as society defines it, has nothing to do with strength. It's about surrender. You don't raise children to be powerful, you raise them to fit in. You don't teach them to question everything, you teach them to obey. And in the process of trying to protect them from every possible harm, you guarantee they'll never experience anything truly worth living for. This is the first dark truth about fatherhood that nobody wants to face. Most men become fathers because they're too weak to become anything else. They need the role because without it, they're nothing. They hide behind fatherhood because it's the one identity that society automatically respects. Because any man can become a father. The biological act requires no wisdom, no strength, no character. It just requires one moment of impulse. But society treats fatherhood like it's some profound accomplishment, when really it's just the path of least resistance. The path every other mediocre man before you already took. Nietzsche understood this. The higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly. But modern fathers don't soar. They plant themselves on the ground, convince themselves that walking is the same as flying, and then call it a choice. They tell themselves they're staying for the kids when really they're staying because they're terrified of what they'd have to become if they actually pursued their potential. They call it responsibility, when it's really just fear dressed up as virtue. The moment you announce you're going to be a father, the conditioning begins. People congratulate you. They tell you your life is about to have real meaning. They say you're about to experience true love. And it sounds beautiful, but here's what they don't tell you. What they're really celebrating is your domestication. What they're actually applauding is that you've joined them in the cage. What they're truly relieved about is that you've stopped being a threat to their own choices by making the same choice they made. Because when men choose different paths, it forces uncomfortable questions. When men pursue their own vision regardless of social approval, it exposes how much everyone else compromised. But when you become a father the conventional way, you validate everyone else's surrender. You confirm their choices. You make them feel better about their own cages by joining them inside. This is the second dark truth Nietzsche would want you to understand. Society celebrates fatherhood not because it makes you stronger, but because it makes you weaker. Not because it elevates you, but because it controls you. Not because it unleashes your potential, but because it permanently limits it. Once you have children, you have hostages. You can't take risks anymore because you have people depending on you. You can't pursue dangerous ideas because you need stability. You can't challenge the system because you need its approval to provide. You become exactly what every power structure wants. A man with everything to lose and therefore no courage to fight. There is always some madness in love, but there is also always some reason in madness. But modern fatherhood isn't even mad love. It's calculated transaction. You trade your freedom for security. You trade your potential for approval. And the trap is perfect because you can never admit you made a mistake. So instead you double down. You convince yourself it was worth it. You tell yourself you're happy. You perform gratitude for an audience that isn't even watching anymore. Ask any father in private, when his guard is down, when he's had enough drinks to be honest, and you'll hear the same confession. I love my kids. I really do. But sometimes I wonder who I would have been if I never had them. Sometimes I look at men who stayed free and I feel this rage mixed with envy. And then immediately he'll catch himself. He'll backtrack. He'll say, of course I wouldn't change anything. But you saw it. That moment of truth before the social programming kicked back in. That flash of authentic feeling before he remembered what he's supposed to say. This is the third dark truth about fatherhood. Most fathers are lying to themselves every single day, pretending they chose this freely when really they were pushed into it by expectations, manipulated by biology and trapped by timing. They tell themselves they wanted kids when really they wanted meaning and thought kids would provide it. They claim they have no regrets, when really they've just learned to suppress them so completely they almost believe their own performance. But Nietzsche knew better. Man is the cruelest animal, and nowhere is that cruelty more evident than in how we lie to ourselves, how we construct elaborate justifications for our surrenders, how we turn our compromises into virtues. The modern father doesn't just trap himself, he traps his children too. Because he can't teach what he doesn't know. He can't model what he's never been. He can't inspire them to become extraordinary when he chose ordinary. So he raises them the same way he was raised. He teaches them to be safe instead of powerful. He shows them how to fit in instead of how to stand out. And he calls this love when really it's just the replication of his own limitations. The cruelest part isn't what fatherhood takes from you, it's what it prevents you from ever becoming. That book you were going to write, that business you were going to build, that version of yourself you were working toward. All of it dies the moment you become a father. Not because it's impossible to be both a father and a creator, but because modern fatherhood makes it functionally impossible to prioritize anything except the endless demands of children and family life. Your mornings are consumed by breakfast routines, your days by work to pay for everything they need, your evenings by homework help, your weekends by activities and obligations, your mind by constant worry. When exactly are you supposed to become the man you dreamed of being? The answer is never. And that's by design. This is the fourth dark truth. Fatherhood, as currently constructed, is specifically engineered to prevent men from achieving anything that might make them dangerous to the existing power structure. A man without children is unpredictable. He can take risks. He can challenge systems. He can walk away from jobs that exploit him. But a man with children, he's controllable. He needs that job even if it destroys his soul. He needs stability, even if it means abandoning his dreams. He'll accept less, tolerate more, and complain quietly because he can't afford to fight. He who fights with monsters might take care lest he thereby become a monster. But the modern father doesn't fight monsters. He becomes a servant to them. He works for systems he knows are corrupt. He teaches his children to obey authorities he knows are unjust. Why? Because he has no choice. Or more accurately, because he made a choice 20 years ago that eliminated all his future choices. He chose to have children before he chose to have a vision. He chose to be a father before he chose to be someone worth following. Where are you watching this from? Drop your city in the comments because this next truth hits different depending on where you're trapped. Here's what nobody tells you before you have children. The sacrifice doesn't make you noble, it makes you resentful. Every father knows this feeling even if he never admits it. That moment when his kid interrupts him for the 100th time, and something inside him snaps. When his wife asks him to do one more thing and he wants to scream. When his friends without kids post pictures of their freedom, and he feels poison called envy burning in his chest. When he realizes he's become a background character in his own story. The supporting actor in someone else's narrative. This is the fifth dark truth that destroys the mythology of fatherhood. Resentment is not a bug in the system. It's a feature. Because society needs you to resent your sacrifice just enough to keep working harder to prove it was worth it, but not enough to actually question whether you should have made it at all. You're supposed to be tired so you don't have energy to rebel. You're supposed to be stressed so you don't have mental space to think clearly. You're supposed to be overwhelmed so you don't have time to realize you've been conned. One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star. But modern fatherhood systematically removes all chaos from your life. It schedules you. It routinizes you. It domesticates you. It turns your wild chaos into predictable patterns. Your dancing stars into dutiful compromises. Your potential for greatness into competent adequacy. And you're supposed to call it growth when really it's diminishment. The resentment comes from deep within. From the part of you that knows you were capable of more. From the part that remembers who you were before you became dad. Most fathers deal with this resentment in one of three ways. They bury it completely and become those hollow men at playgrounds. They medicate it with alcohol, porn, video games, whatever keeps them numb. Or they redirect it toward their children and wives, becoming bitter and wondering why nobody appreciates everything they sacrifice. But none of these solutions work because none address the real problem. The real problem is that modern fatherhood is built on a foundation of lies. The lie that your purpose is to serve. The lie that sacrifice equals love. The lie that fatherhood completes you when really it just consumes you. This is the sixth dark truth. The version of fatherhood society promotes isn't designed to make you happy. It's designed to make you useful. You're not a father. You're a resource, a wallet, a taxi service, a provider of endless support while you yourself slowly disappear. Nietzsche saw this pattern everywhere. The surest way to corrupt a youth is to instruct him to hold in higher esteem those who think alike than those who think differently. And this is exactly what modern fatherhood does. It teaches children to value conformity over authenticity. It models sacrifice over self-actualization. And then we wonder why each generation seems weaker than the last. Why young men lack direction. Why children lack resilience. It's because their fathers modeled surrender and called it strength. Because their fathers gave up their own potential and called it love. When you show them a man who abandoned his dreams, they learn that dreams are expendable. When you show them a man who suppressed his nature, they learn that authenticity is dangerous. The seventh and most devastating truth is this: your children don't need you to sacrifice everything. They need you to become everything. But society inverted this truth because powerful fathers raise powerful children and powerful children threaten the system. So society convinced you that good fatherhood means making yourself smaller, that it means putting your development on hold indefinitely. But Nietzsche understood what real strength looks like. What is great in man is that he is a bridge and not an end. Your children don't need you to be their servant. They need you to be their bridge to something greater. They don't need you to sacrifice your potential. They need you to demonstrate what potential looks like when it's actually pursued. They don't need you to be their friend. They need you to be so powerful, so directed, so uncompromisingly yourself, that they have no choice but to rise to your level. But this terrifies modern society, because fathers who pursue their own greatness teach children to do the same. Fathers who refuse to compromise teach children that compromise is optional. Fathers who build empires teach children that empires can be built. And the last thing any established system wants is a generation of children who learned from fathers who never surrendered. This is why society pushes the narrative so hard. This is why every cultural message tells you that good fathers sacrifice everything. Because if you actually pursued your potential while being a father, you'd raise children who threaten everything. You'd create a generation that refuses to be domesticated. And you'd prove that the entire mythology of fatherhood as sacrifice was always a lie designed to keep men weak. Here's what actually happens. Fathers who gave up everything sit across from children who respect nothing. Men who sacrifice their dreams watch their kids waste opportunities. Fathers who work themselves to exhaustion fund lifestyles for children who feel entitled. And these fathers are confused. They did everything society told them. So why do their children seem weak and directionless? Because children don't respect sacrifice. They respect strength. They don't admire servants, they admire conquerors. They don't want fathers who gave up everything for them. They want fathers who achieved everything despite them. The more you sacrifice for your children, the less they respect you. The more you center your life around them, the more they take you for granted. But fathers who maintain their mission, who continue building even after children arrive, who refuse to make their children the center of their universe, these fathers raise children who are strong and capable. Why? Because these children had to earn their father's attention. They had to rise to his standards. They grew up watching a man who was more than just dad. He was a force, he was building something, and they wanted to be like him. Not because he spent every moment with them, but because the moments he gave them mattered. That which does not kill us makes us stronger. But modern fathers try to ensure nothing ever threatens their children. They remove every obstacle, they smooth every path, and then they wonder why their children crumble the moment life challenges them. But here's what gives me hope. You can still change this. Not for the fathers who are already broken. They're too committed to the lie. But you. If you're watching this and you're not a father yet, you have a choice. If you're a young father who just started, you can still change course. You can choose differently. You can refuse to make fatherhood your entire identity. You can commit to becoming someone extraordinary and let your children rise to meet that standard. You can pursue your vision even if it means your children get less of your time, because the quality of who you are matters more than the quantity of time you give. But this requires courage. The courage to be hated by your children sometimes because you demand more. The courage to be criticized by other fathers because you refuse to play their game. The courage to stand alone if necessary because you know the alternative is becoming another hollow man with dead eyes. He who would learn to fly one day must first learn to stand and walk and run and climb and dance. But modern fathers never learned to stand because they were never required to. So before you have children, become someone worth following. Before you try to raise powerful children, become a powerful man. Otherwise, you're just perpetuating the same cycle, the same weakness, the same surrender. Drop a comment right now and tell me this. I refuse to be a servant father. I choose to be a powerful father. Write exactly that, because when you declare something publicly, you activate a part of your psychology that makes it real. You create accountability. You draw a line between who you were and who you're becoming. And tomorrow, when the doubts creep in, when the social pressure mounts, when people question your choices, you can remember that you declared war on mediocrity, that you chose power over comfort, that you committed to becoming the father your children actually need, rather than the father society told you to be. Now take 30 seconds and hit that subscribe button, because this channel exists for one reason: to remind men that they don't have to surrender. That powerful is still possible. That the system wants you weak, but you can choose to be dangerous. Every video is designed to tear apart one more comfortable lie and replace it with one more uncomfortable truth. Subscribe, because we're building something. A community of men who refuse to be domesticated, who choose vision over validation, who would rather be legendary than liked. And finally, watch what happens next. Because the next video is going to challenge something even more fundamental than fatherhood, something that cuts even deeper. I'm going to expose the one thing that every man thinks makes him strong, but actually guarantees he'll never become powerful. And when you see it, when you truly understand it, you'll never look at yourself the same way again. The truth is waiting. The only question is whether you're ready for it.